Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for clicking on this video. My name is In the Game Kaya, and welcome to ITGK Survives ARK Tutorials series. And I'm here following up on one of my most popular videos from last year. Kind of kicked off my channel in a way, was the PvE settings for 2022. Well, now it's a new year, and there are a few issues with the other settings that I want to address and hopefully fix in this batch of settings. I update my settings all the time, and I pretty much ran last year's settings throughout the year, but there are a couple of things that I'm going to try to address here. Now, no settings are perfect, so take what I say in this video with a grain of salt. Try and figure out what works best for you. What I would recommend, if you like these settings, you like the ideas behind them, use them as a base, and then figure out what you think could be better, and then just kind of tweak it for yourself. I do that with a lot of settings for video games and stuff anyway, like NBA 2K, ARK, Madden, you know, all these games that have all the sliders and customization and all that. Just, you know, change everything to your own liking. And this is for PvE, and I'm going to cover fast styles, slow styles, playing by yourself, playing with a couple of people, playing with small tribes, you know, all of those settings all kind of come together. And there's just a big overarching philosophy that I think it helps to have one of those just to kind of like stay focused as you make these. And for me, my philosophy was to keep ARK challenging, because I really like the challenge and the adventure and the danger and all of that stuff. But to cut down on the grind so much, because especially on just flat 1.0 sliders, when you play by yourself, or in just a 1 or 2 man group, which I do almost all the time now, it's either me alone or me and my brother, and that's it, whenever we play on a server or on a map or whatever. So the 1.0 rates are just really, really, really grindy, and some people like that. But I like it a little bit faster than that. So I'm trying to cut out some of the downtime and help you to get up to that level where you still feel like you're having to work hard to make progress, but that you are actually making progress. Because I personally always hit a wall. Especially when it comes to time to start running caves and breeding the boss army and stuff. Right about that time, I seem to hit a wall where it's just like endless resource grinding, endless breeding, occasionally cave running, and then right back to grinding again. And there's not much of anything else going on. And we don't do a whole lot of PvP. We kind of dabble in it, which we actually did a video that was something I had a lot of fun with it, and the ending was absolutely nuts. Was the Hunters Challenge, PvP Hunters Challenge. It was a manhunt style video, and the way that whole session ended was not scripted at all, but it sure felt like it when it happened because of how tight and tense the ending was. If you do anything, just like go watch the ending of that video. It is insane. I assure you it will be worth your time. Just go and check that. Maybe watch the whole thing. I mean, it is a little bit on the longer side, so I understand if you don't want to watch the whole thing, but at least watch the ending. At least watch the ending. But let's get into these settings. So, first of all, the overall philosophy. Before we get to the fast or the slow, is for single player, most of these settings are going to be 4 times normal rates. A lot of these are going to be 4 times normal rates, or 2 times. And then for duos, you would do 3 times, because believe it or not, even though there's 2 people, the game does not go twice as fast. It doesn't, because at least with my brother and I, we have a tendency to do a lot of stuff together anyway, so we can get a little bit more done, but we're not doing twice the work. And then small tribes would be double rates. That's you got 3 or 4 people, maybe 5. And then for average size tribes of like 6 or more, then you're pretty much just going to play on default rates. It's not that big of a deal. There are some things that you're going to want to make faster, but a lot of it is gonna stay at that default level, because once you get up into those bigger tribe sizes, for the most part, the game feels okay around that speed, and you can split up the workload and not have to worry as much about that grind. So having a little bit more work to get to those check marks, those checkpoints, it doesn't hurt so bad. So for things that are 4.0, you're going to decrease it by 1 for each level that you go up. So it starts at 4 for single player. That would be 3 for duos, 2 for small tribes, and then 1 for larger tribes. And then basically you're just going to take the stat and divide it by, whatever yours is, whatever your setting is. So you just remove a quarter of the number. I'm not making this sound as easy as it is, as easy as it actually is. And then some settings are 2.0, that you would remove 0.5 from each. And then specifically the one that I'm thinking of is 100 times is this. So 100 for single, 75 for duos, and 50 for small tribes, and then 25 for tribes. And that's still, 25 times on baby rates is quite a bit faster than vanilla rates. So like the whole growing an army thing takes forever on default rates. Harvesting an XP, you can get by with that, but those baby rates are crazy, man. Alright, so let's get into this. I'll probably chop some of the rest of that up so it doesn't sound so rough, or maybe dub over it or something. But yeah, let's go through these settings. A lot of these are going to be 1.0. I covered a lot of the settings in depth in my 2022 video, or in my I&I editing video, where I went over every single setting in the game that I could find and explained what it all did and where you might want to have it. So if you need more details, check those videos out. I'm just doing settings here to try and keep things moving. I have a tendency to ramble, as you may have noticed, so I'm trying to keep the rambling down. But yeah, difficulty level maxed out, and maximum difficulty down here is ticked. There it is. Maximum difficulty is ticked. So this will give you dinos spawns of level 150 in increments of 5, from 5 to 150. And then wyvern spawns and rock drake spawns up to 190, I think. And then crystal wyvern spawns to 225 and text to 180. It's weird how that all works, really, the way those taming levels work. It kind of got thrown around with some of the creatures as they added them in the maps, as they changed it all up. But that's going to give you just a pretty baseline experience. That is what I believe what all official servers run at, if not most of them. So that's going to give you that default ARK difficulty. And ARK is a fairly difficult game. But I would not, if you think ARK is difficult, I would not recommend changing this or this at all. Change the other sliders around it. Give yourself more damage, or give yourself higher resistance, or whatever the case may be. Don't decrease dino levels, because that starts to throw off the balance of literally everything else, including the loot that you can get and all of that. And I did actually change loot in this slider set, these settings. So a lot of this is 1.0, including XP multiplier. This was up last year. This is back to 1.0 because I'm using the advanced XP slider set down here, and we'll get to that in a bit. Taming speed is still 4.0. This is one thing you probably don't want to change across. Now you might change this if you feel like 4.0 is too fast. A lot of creatures you can tame without narcotics at 4.0. Maybe that's something you care about. Maybe you back it off a little bit. I have tried doing wild dino food drain, wild dino torpor drain and stuff, and messing with all of that, and the results got wonky and inconsistent, and it was just a headache. So I went back to using the default taming speed slider, and that's where we're at right now. Dino harvesting damage I have at 10. Basically, a dino that you use for harvesting will instantly harvest a node, a resource node like that. And harvest amount, again, at 4.0. This one you're going to scale. 3.0 for duo, 2.0 for small tribe, and 1.0 for larger tribes. Water and food drain is the same, stamina drain is the same. They've upped the health recovery for players and dinos. Players to 2.0 and dinos to 3.0, and you're not going to touch these. This is so that when you get hurt, sometimes, unless you use healing brews or veggie cakes or something, it can take a while for your player or your dino to heal. And this is going to help you. This is going to help you recover faster without needing those. Now you can still use those if it's in a pinch, it's a boss fight, it's a cave, or whatever. You need the extra burst health. You can go ahead and those medical brews are still very useful. Those veggie cakes, you're still going to need them for the dragon boss fight. Like, this is not going to break that. This is just so that when your dinos are sitting in the yard or your babies are, especially the way as fast as the babies grow, they need that help because they're going to be fully grown and not have their health all the way full yet. A lot of them. So that alleviates a lot of those problems. It's not that big of an issue as far as I'm concerned. If you have any problems with these, by the way, you think one of these, oh, this setting breaks this aspect of the game or this aspect of the game, go ahead and let me know. I may update these settings before we get to 2024. So this doesn't have to be a yearly sliders and settings video. But if there are updates needed, I will push out an update. Player harvesting still 1.0. Dino count is default. I almost never change this. I did down it in the Hunter's Challenge video so that it will be a little bit less of a threat of wild dinos when we were out running around. But I didn't. I think I went to 0.75. I still didn't down it that much. Here's something interesting. If you've never used my settings before, I do not have crosshairs on by default. I do not have map location on by default, and I don't allow gamma changes on PvP or PvE. And the reason I do that is because there are items in the game that allow you to work around these limitations. So there's no map location. Well, you can build a compass and pull out your handheld map and figure out where you're at on whatever map you're playing on using a compass. And they're pretty cheap, they're easy to get. You get them pretty early on in the game, not that hard. And once you get a GPS, literally no need for map location at that point, other than orientation. And even then, like, the GPS has a compass built into it. You don't need it for orientation either. You can turn it on. It's not going to break the game if you turn it on. And the same goes for crosshair. There are special sights and scopes and dots and things that you can put on your weapons that pull up a crosshair. So when you need it, you can throw a weapon attachment on and you have it. It adds a little bit of extra challenge to using like a bow or a crossbow early in the game, or a long neck with darts where you don't have the crosshair immediately. But again, there are attachments that help with that. And then for gamma, you can build flashlights, there are handheld torches, there are night vision goggles, and you played with gamma commands. When's the last time you actually went out and got a pair of night vision goggles? Yeah, I didn't think so. Basically, gamma makes things like that completely useless. So I don't allow gamma. This is probably one thing a lot of people are going to want to turn on, but I leave it off myself. You don't have to. You don't have to stick to my settings if you don't want to, but that is one thing that I don't use that a lot of people do. Allow unlimited respecs. This one in particular, you're going to want to make sure that if you're running a server with like 3 or more people in it. So even a small scale server, you're going to want to make sure that's off. Because when you respec, it causes a lot of lag in the game. And especially if you have some auto engram mod, it can cause a lot of lag in the game. So you may want to be careful with that setting. And in single player, you're fine. Throw on the unlimited respecs, respec for crafting skill, craft your BP, and then turn around and respec yourself back to normal stats, or whatever. Oh, and if I don't cover a setting, I'm just going to scroll here. Just make sure that you take a look at everything. This only matters if you run a non-dedicated session, so don't worry about that. If you're playing on servers, not going to change anything. And oh yeah, I also play on PvP. Even when I'm doing a PvE style game, I always play on PvP mode because there's some things you can do in PvP you can't do in PvE, and it's not really the other way around. So I don't see why you would ever play in PvE unless you just that much can't stand cryo sickness. If you can understand my broken English. And allow flyer carrying PvE in the event I ever do toggle PvE for some reason, such as for cryo sickness. If I'm going to be cryoing a lot of things, I may turn it on for a session. This still allows me to carry my own tames around, or carry wild creatures around. Not my own tames, you can do that anyway, but carry wild creatures around. Structure decay, that's not important. I want to make sure I don't miss anything here. Mating interval 0.01. This is, I think, as low as this slider can go. You can technically set it to 0, but you have to do that in an INI on a server. I think this is as low as this can go, and if it gets lower than this, ARK will just bump it up to this setting right here. And this is going to have like 15 to 30 minutes wait between mating periods. Not that bad, really. Then egg hatch speed and maturation speed is around 100. And again, that'd be 100 for single, and then 75 for duo, 50 for small tribe, and 25 for large tribe. And what this does is even the big creatures, like Rexes, take an hour to mature and like 10-15 minutes for the egg to hatch. And then Gigas, it's like, I think it's an hour for the egg to hatch and 2.5 hours for them to grow up or something like that. But that makes it so that you can get on, hatch an egg, and fully raise and imprint the creature in one session. Because especially if you are not running a server, those timers do not run when you are not playing the game. If you are doing this in a single player session, those timers will not run if you're not playing the game. So I needed to, I think I had this to like 40 in my last session, or my last set of settings, and that was honestly a little slow. It took multiple sessions, possibly, depending on how long you could play and sit down and play for, to get those creatures out. And if you're breeding and raising Gigas by the dozens for the Titans on Extinction, it was an absolute headache for that. I did up the consumption speed to 4.0. They can still eat enough to sustain themselves at 4.0. This helps to cut down on babies that hatch out of the egg and have enough food stat to grow straight up to adulthood. Once you get up past about 5, it starts to get finicky, and even babies that have food on them will die. They'll starve to death because they just can't eat fast enough. So I just put it to 4. They'll be able to sustain themselves off of a trough once you get them to juvie stage. Not going to be a problem. Where's the cuddle? Yes, here. Cuddle. Interval. 0.1. The cuddle takes place... I'm going to put it up on the screen right now because I can't remember. I want to say it's about 20 minutes. And then the grace period and stuff is all the same. Stat scale is the same. I doubled the length of the day and halved the time of night. The day cycle went from around 60 minutes to around 90 minutes, and you have double the amount of sunlight and half the amount of dark. Because without gamma commands, early in the game, it can be impossible to do anything at night. Sometimes it's fine, but there are other nights before you've got a handful of things to see, to help you see. It can be just standing in the middle of your base with a campfire and a torch and just waiting out the night for 20 minutes. So that cuts the wait time in half. It's not nearly as bad now. And the super, super dark time of night, again, it's not going to last nearly as long. And then, are these supposed to be 0? I don't remember those are supposed to be 0 or not. I'm gonna have to check my other video if these are supposed to be 0 or not. And if I'm doing this and they are supposed to be 0, I'll put the text on screen right now. But I some of my settings got screwed up before I started making this recording, and because of the way this menu works, I wasn't able to just like back out and recheck. So other than wiping the stats and going back to normal, there was nothing I could do there. So we'll just I hope I did that right. Okay, wild dino stats are all 1.0. Main dino stats are all default. Dinos add per level is all default. Affinity is all default. Player stats per level, I did up food and water, because these two stats, particularly, like oxygen has some niche use. Before you have scuba gear or easy access to Lazarus Chowder, leveling up your oxygen can be a decent way to do some stuff underwater early in the game. And you can tame Diplocalus. It's a salamander, or whatever. It's a lizard. You can find it in the swamp, and then you can breathe oxygen out of it while you're underwater. But food and water, I always felt like there was no reason to level it up. Even at 2.5, there's still no reason to level this up, really. Other than maybe water for Scorched Earth. Like, I guess. That. But then 25 water every time you level up. So you go from 100 to 125, 150. 1 or 2 levels into water, and your water is fine. Even on Scorched Earth. But I just felt like this made it a little bit more worth it to level that stuff up. You might pump a level in. Who knows? And this is something else I was talking about. Was experience and loot was a couple of big overhauls that I did in this slider set. So the last slider set that I did, here's why I changed it. It was 4.0 experience, and then the 3-to-1 scale like I did for so many of my settings. And it made putting out, those settings really, really easy and easy to follow. But the first time I always open with a note run. I knowing how to do it and knowing that it's sitting there waiting for me, I just can't stop myself from doing it. I play on the island so much. I can't not run notes or go to Genesis Part 1 and run corruption nodes or whatever those things are. Those little glitches. I just start grinding those and get myself up 50, 60, 70 levels. Just like that. Super, super fast. With 4.0 rates. It's like, I gotta back this off. Because I just can't stop myself from doing it. I know I'm not the only one. I can't be the only one. So, this is what I did instead. Special and generic XP are 1.0. That's basically static experience. And this is the experience you get from, say, notes. This special slider is really finicky for me. It doesn't seem to work at all. I've been told this works on Explorer notes, but I couldn't. When I downed this to 0, I still got XP from Explorer notes, so I don't know what was going on there. But this is what I subbed on. It's the 1.0 XP slider here. And then, so these are all at their default rates. So 2.0 experience for killing stuff. Sometimes getting on a carnivore and just going on a killing spree or killing an alpha level creature could also give you a ton of experience. So that kind of keeps that down a little bit, so you don't just blow through levels the moment you kill an alpha carnal for the first time. And there are ways to gimmick those alpha kills too, so that kind of it gets rid of that gimmicky level grinding strat. But at the same time, herbivores and other creatures like that you'd use for harvesting, they don't level up all, feels like, sometimes. So this helps a lot with that. And then early in the game, that level curve is going to hit pretty sweet. You're going to get levels pretty fast. But later in the game, as a player especially, you get so little XP from harvesting, it's not going to hurt you to have a 4.0 harvest rate once you get past like level 40 or level 50. And you're using animals to harvest mostly at that point. Not going to hurt at all. And crafting, 4.0 crafting experience, again, same thing. Early in the game, you're going to get plenty of experience from crafting stuff, just like you would on the old sliders. Again, remember, my old slider was 4.0, so this is technically slower XP sliders than I had before. But late in the game, you don't get nearly as much XP from crafting stuff. Not going to hurt to have that. This is literally just, do you want it, do you not? I don't care. It's not going to change the way you play the game at all. I keep it off because sometimes when you do a lot of damage, it lags a little bit. Some people like it on. A lot of people like it on. That's up to you. Allow rig dino feeding is on, so you can feed your Titanos and your Extinction Titans and stuff. Custom recipes I thought were fine. Crafting skill bonus I put to 0.5. And then, because I did this, supply crate loot quality 2.0. I found that it was really hard to get. You're looking for specific things or a handful of things, and you're just grinding loot, going through loot drop to loot drop to loot drop, and you just can't find it. Maybe you find a primitive ramshackle, and it's still not good enough. It's not going to give you the quality that you need. Well, this is going to take a lot of those low-level blueprints that you keep pulling out of loot drops and make them into blues and purples. Still not broken loot. You'll get more ascendants for sure. And ultimately, the quality of loot that you get will be probably just slightly higher, but you won't be able to crafting skill boost on top of that. So that 250% shotgun is not going to be 375% shotgun when you're done crafting it. It's going to be closer to 310, which is just a little bit above vanilla, I think. Just a little bit higher. And then fishing loot, again, 2.0, if you decide to fish for your loot instead of loot run. But this ultimately should balance out what you're able to get from the loot. It'll be just slightly easier, but ARK's already a hard game, and those super overpowered blueprints are so rare anyway. I don't think it's going to affect your gameplay experience at all. And I did very slightly increase the platform structure limit from 1 to 1.5. There's just that little bit of extra creativity for things that you can do on a platform or a boat or whatever. And I run with no active events. So there you go. Those are my settings. All engrams are on, by the way, in case you were wondering. And this will not stop going. I can't get it to stop. And I'm going to put this in somewhere in the video because I realized as I was doing my outro, I forgot to cover this. I was also going to, so this is just like a little addition. If these settings were good for you, those were the normal speed settings, what I recommend for most people. If that was good, you're free to leave. I'm not saying anything new that you haven't heard, but if you want a fast-paced ARK experience, or you want a little bit more of that grind, what I recommend is for a handful of these settings, and this is where you will actually be using this XP multiplier. So that would be, let me see if I can list them. XP multiplier, taming speed, harvest amount, and then that's going to do it in there. It would be the breeding settings here, mating interval, egg hatch, mature, and the cuddle. yeah, that should be it, is those settings. So again, that's the XP, taming speed, harvest amount, and then the breeding settings. You're going to, if you want a slow pace, just cut them in half. It's still going to be faster than default rates, but it'll be a little bit more tuned, not quite as grindy, especially in the breeding, which is just ridiculous. The default breeding rates are so slow. And everything else in ARK got faster over time, but I don't think breeding ever did. And then if you want a fast-paced ARK experience, my brother decided he wanted to play by himself on some of these maps. And he said, you know, he hoped to get it all done sometime soon, hopefully, where it didn't take too long. Go ahead and double. XP multiplier 2, taming speed 8, and the harvest amount 8, and then the breeding speed's up to 200. And have the cuddle interval down from, what is it, 0.1 or 0.01 to be 0.05 would be for the fast, and then obviously 0.2 would be for the slow. So yeah, like, it's still not going to break your ARK experience at that. Yeah, we're talking 8x rates on some things, which is absolutely nuts. But the series that my brother and I do, we're playing on higher than 8x rates. I think it might be 10x rates. And we still have to work hard to get some of this stuff. So it's not going to completely trash your experience. You're going to hit some soft walls where you like are way over leveled for something, where you have a whole bunch of resources of one thing and you don't have any way to use it yet. Like, you don't have many things that you can use metal on yet, and you have a ton of metal already. Those kinds of things are going to happen when you go on the super crazy raids. But it's not going to kill your ARK experience if you're worried about it being too fast. It's not too fast to seriously hurt it. It's just a much faster paced experience, if that's what you're into. Or slower, cut the numbers in half, and you're good. Alright, now let's go ahead and do the outro. But that's it. If you have problems with these, feedback of any kind, leave it in the comments. You know what? It's a YouTube video. If you can do all the YouTube video things, very much appreciated. Thank you for that. Again, don't forget to check out that PvP Hunters Challenge video, the manhunt that I did with my brother just a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Thank you for watching this, and I hope this all comes out good in the editing room. Assuming that it does, I will see you guys in a little bit. And don't worry, for those of you who are fans, the few of you, it's not many at this point, but there are some, the few of you that are fans of my I2GK Survive series, that series is going to continue. I haven't canceled it or anything. I put it on soft hiatus. And it is going to be coming back pretty shortly. So stay tuned for that. But that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much. See you next time.